Welcome to WWE. There's a lot of hype right now going around about WrestleMania 41, and I've always been a sideline fan. Always had my own personal view of how things should be, how things are, how they could be better. And I decided what time better than WrestleMania to go ahead and take some of these thoughts that I've shared with my wife and put them out into the world and just see how far they go. Before we dive in, I want to point out the difference between what I view as a booking and a prediction. So today I'm going to emphasize Jey Uso versus Gunther. However, I'm not trying to emphasize the actual result or what they're actually going to do. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to take it up a notch. I'm going to say, in my world, where I control the outcomes, this is how I would see that play out. So Jey Uso is clearly over with the fans. He's getting all kinds of backlash about, oh, he's just a gimmick. He's just yeet. He's just this outro. And to an extent, that's deserved. He hasn't really taken us to that next level. He's shown glimpses of it, but he hasn't actually found a way to convert who he is and what he stands for and where he's going into something more viable than, hey, I won the Rumble. Yeet. You know? They've had a couple of misfires with the back and forth on Raws. Obviously, they were able to kind of course correct it a bit towards the end, bloodying up Jimmy, giving him some color. But I feel like they've got all the pieces there to really take this to something that no one else is capable of giving us. So let's travel back to fall of last year. You could argue that maybe it was a punishment behind the scenes, but Braun Breaker was forced to relinquish his title to Jey Uso. It's a big moment, huge pop, everybody excited for him. He got to give some really touching and what felt like very personal and heartfelt speeches to the fans on Monday Night Raw, and eventually, obviously, they stripped that back away from him and put it back on Braun. But in that time period, we got to see a completely different Jey than what we've been seeing for over a decade. At that same time, everybody was looking at the Sunday night main event in December when they were pairing him up against Gunther again. And everybody knew Gunther was going to win that. But everybody was also kind of holding on with, no, maybe they want to surprise us with the Sunday night main event. Maybe they want to give us that. And it was very obvious that they constructed that in a manner where they wanted you to think, oh, this almost happened. Not only is it almost going to happen right now, but they also gave us enough presence after the fact to say, this is real. This could go down. They gave Jey an opportunity to come back out on Raw and say, I was this close. And then he said the magic words. He was talking to the fans. He said, I can beat him. In my mind, that was a transformation of what that character was and had the ability to be. But they didn't really take it anywhere from there. It was just kind of beating the same drum of everybody's doubting me. I doubt myself. You know what? That's powerful. The first time we heard it, it had so much gravity to it. It sucked us in. But it's not enough to just keep ringing that same bell. They have to tell a story. They have to give us something more. And fortunately, I feel like they did get us back on course with Jimmy and getting some color and that serious tone of Jey walking down the fans, wearing all black, not yeeting. The whole crowd just begging him, just please, we want to participate, we want to have fun, we want to yeet. Not yeeting. He goes in the ring. He tells us what's about to happen. And he walks out, still no yeets. We see a follow-up this last Monday. Halfway the same thing. Walks down the crowd, no yeeting, serious, wearing black, but then on the way out, gives us some fun. So, there's a couple of pieces here, and I feel like it was important to go all the way back to fall to point out Braun Breaker and the IC title with that being his first solo title win and kind of legitimizing him as not just the tag team guy. I want to talk about how I see this playing out. At this point, it would be very challenging for the WWE to successfully put Gunther over, to have him walk away with the belt. Excuse me, title. So it's inevitable. Jey Uso is going to be a feel-good. The first sign of doubt that I had that WWE was reconsidering their direction largely stemmed around the fact that he's no longer a main event. There's that notorious clip of at the Royal Rumble after he won, Michael Cole shouting he's main event Jey Uso. He's going to live up to his moniker. And first opportunity they had to give us that payoff, they didn't give it to him. There's a very real chance he may become a show opener. Now, I know in this modern era, they're trying to treat the show openers as kind of like their semi-main events. But we all know the truth. Everybody wants to be that last headline, that last show, that last gas, that last thing you remember, that thing that you go to bed with, and you're either so excited that it happened that you can't sleep, or you're so anxious about what just happened, you don't know what tomorrow's going to look like on Raw or on Night 2. So the question is how do you make that bigger than life? I said earlier, I firmly believe that Jey Uso has a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He has something no one else can do. The truth is, the Yeet entrance is more over than he is. It's more over than anything else in the WWE, but it is starting to play out. It is starting to fade. So, correctly identified, they're having to pivot away from it. Jey walks out in all black. He doesn't yeet. Brilliant. That is a great direction. I'm going to show you I've got depth. I'm going to become more interesting because I don't always give you exactly what you want and I'm predictable. But how do you bottle the power of Yeet? Well, that's our topic today. So I'm going to proceed forward with my fantasy booking. If you put me on the payroll and you said, hey, we need to make this the most insane event we can possibly make it, how do we go about it? How do we set it up to where maybe there's a rematch in the future? How do we set it up for what the next couple of months look like before we get to SummerSlam? How do you go from here? Well, buckle up. This is my story. I firmly believe we know exactly what we're going to see. We're going to see a version of what we saw with Sami Zayn. We're going to see Gunther putting it to him, powering down on him, just beating the living hell out of him. And we're going to see the resilience. We're going to see the hopelessness in Jay's face. And at some point, we're going to see him stand tall and we're going to see him stand up and go, nah, not today. But that's where I want things to change. After we've done everything you expect to see, after we've done Gunther powering him down, Jay standing tall, I want Gunther to smash him. I want Gunther to make him regret ever thinking he had a shot. And then I want there to be a moment where Jimmy is so desperate to help his brother. And Jay has to look at him and say, no, I have to do this. Win or lose, it has to be me. I want Jimmy, out of sheer frustration, to just, in a complete panic, try to figure out what is he going to do. How can he help his brother? He can't. He's got to let him do it. But that's when I want things to change. I want Jimmy to go and physically grab a cameraman and start yanking him to the back. Come with me. Come with me. Come with me. And I want the cameras cut. What's going on? What's going on? I want Jimmy to drag him either to Gorilla or the production truck, either one. And I want him to run up. And when Jay is laying in the corner, beaten to hell, doesn't have anything left. Gunther's laughing. I want Jimmy to drag that camera guy up to the guy that's in charge of playing the music, and I want to have him say, play Jey's music. I want the crowd to just see Jey laying in the floor, unable to go on. And all of a sudden, I want Jey Uso's Yeet music to start. I want Gunther to stagger back, looking around the room like, what the hell is this? And seeing the reaction, seeing the fans throwing their arms in the air. Yeet, yeet, yeet. I want Jey to be sitting in that corner, and I want him to almost look like he's about to cry. Like, I want to do this. I want to pull this off, but I can't. And I want the fans to just keep yeeting, and Gunther to get more and more frustrated and take it out on him. Beat him to a pulp. The music's still going. And then how magical would it be if on beat, Jey starts throwing punches. Yeet. 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 And then goes to the finish. Hits the Uso splash. 1, 2, 3. They don't even have to start the music. The music's been going the whole time. I want Jimmy to rush out the back. I want him to run down to the floor and start celebrating with his brother. What is a more magical way to almost, not quite, not really, but almost retire the Yeet gimmick than to make it its own super powerful character for the finish? It gives Jey the ability to say, I did it by myself. It gives Jey the ability to come out on Raw and say, y'all believed in me when I gave up on myself. Y'all did this just as much as I did this. He gets to say some nice things about his mama, and he gets to go on. But that right there, I think, is a booking ending that no one else is capable of providing. There's no one else out there that can do that. You used to see things like that with The Undertaker when they were still living through the mysticism and the magic powers that he possessed. You'd hear, dong, the lights would go out, something magical would happen. The fans would go nuts. Your hair on the back of your neck would stand up. The crowd would hold their breath. Everybody would be ready for, oh my God, what's about to happen? I think there's a chance to do this a bit more overt and give the Yeet entrance the highest regard, and also at the same time say, you know what, maybe that's the end of depending exclusively on that gimmick. So where do we go from there? We all figure, yeah, Jey's probably going to walk out of there with the title. I'd like to really throw this gimmick out there and lean into it and have it be something incredible. You don't really see people's music playing during the match, let alone to be the rallying call for the end of the match, to be that moment of, I can't help you, but I can help you help you. I can let the fans help you. Well, that's when I think we take it back to the fall. To this point, Jey Uso is still the only man that has taken down Braun Breaker for that IC title. We're in a unique position at WrestleMania where Braun can lose the title without being pinned, without being beaten. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I feel they're ready to move Braun up to the next level, move him up into that heavyweight conversation. And what better way to lose his belt without losing, and then turn and look at the man, the only man who ever truly beat him for the title, who now happens to be the heavyweight champion, and say, you know what, I'm coming for you. So after WrestleMania, there's always this lull period. We always get a couple of PLEs that don't really feel like they're genuine PLEs, and they're kind of limping us along to SummerSlam. So you always need a filler, and I feel like this is where Cody Rhodes really suffered this year, or last year, however you want to look at it. Cody ended up doing a couple of programs with AJ Styles, including what, in my opinion, was one of the hardest to watch matches, the I Quit match. I thought it was pretty terrible. I thought the gimmick behind it of I'm going to retire to get back to the front of the line, I thought all of that was just boring, worst put together, just a bridge. They were supposed to be using that moment to try to solidify Cody as he is the guy. He is legit, and he's going to just keep walking through these other people. So, in my mind, it's just as important as winning the belt as what are you going to do after that. And I think that's where you have an opportunity to bring Braun into that heavyweight conversation. Let him have a match at one of those PLEs that's not really going to go anywhere, and give that back to Jey. Let Jey beat somebody that the fans are clung onto, that somebody believe is a powerhouse, but somebody that's believable that Jey can beat. Braun is being shown as a monster, but he is still green. He is still just barely going to be touching on that 1 year mark at that point of being on the main roster. It's still believable that he's got more to learn. He's got more to develop. So I think they can elevate Braun, bring him into that heavyweight picture, and they can also solidify Jey as, hey, it wasn't a fluke. I did it once, I did it twice. Y'all are just catching up. Y'all are just figuring out I was already here. And they can bring Braun up. Braun's in the mix for quite a few stories right now, so there's another opportunity to occasionally bring people up. You know, Finn Balor's already been in the heavyweight conversation a long time ago. It seems pretty clear Finn's moving towards the demon direction. It seems pretty clear that they want Penta to be a mainstay. I think Penta is kind of that perfect guy right now to walk that line between mostly being at the IC title level, but occasionally flirting with the heavyweight level, but mostly being a story guy. So I think you can paint that picture of, hey, Gunther's mad. Gunther's mad he lost. But Jey needs to go fight somebody else. Let that fight be with Braun. Solidify him. Let him beat Braun fair and square. Bring Braun back into that picture. Let Braun and Gunther start feuding a little bit on the side. Maybe that could even be another PLE on the side because they're both looking for their rematches now. But ultimately, I think you've got to get to, what does your SummerSlam look like? I've got some theories around Jey and his path that we'll talk about in another video. I'll give you a small spoiler. I think Jey Uso's destined to eventually become the tribal chief. And how he's going to get there may not be what you have in your head. Heck, even the fact that I think he's going to get there may not be believable in your head, but I think I've got enough to connect the dots to it. So we go into SummerSlam, and I think that's where we get Gunther V2. And depending on when you want to pull the trigger on the other storylines that are going to come through with the Tribal Chief's story and where that's going and where I think that's heading, or more importantly, detouring and completely going off track, to be more specific, I think that's when you decide that's where you're going to let him lose the title. But first, you have to make him legitimate. It is more important that Jey Uso walks out of this as a legitimate top-tier guy than it is worrying about whether or not he has that belt or not. Now, obviously, you can build him up as that top-tier guy by giving him a couple of clean finishes, some good matches, but I don't think he has to hold on to it forever. So I believe we're heading into a WrestleMania that has Gunther versus Jey Uso as a rematch. And depending on what the needs of the other stories are, that'll dictate the fate from there. So that's it. This isn't meant to be a prediction. I don't think this is what's going to happen this weekend. I don't think we're going to have this epic Yeet entrance moment be the go home and the finish of the match. I think it's an incredible missed opportunity. I hope I'm looking backwards and saying, man, what they came up with was just as good or better than that. But I'm a firm believer that if you want to suck every piece of emotion out of everybody in that venue, at home, and involved in the match itself, let them act. Let Gunther show fear when that music hits and everybody just starts doing the arms, doing the yeeting. Let Jey show the defeated warrior story. Let him do David versus Glass. Let him come back. Let it be passion that fuels the ending. And I think you'll have something that no other superstar is capable of repeating or giving us for a long, long time. That's it. Let me know in the comments if you have a different idea of how this should play out. If you have an prediction on how you think it's going to play out. If you like what I had to say, let me know that. Let me know what parts you would change with that story. Like, my favorite part of watching wrestling has always been fantasy booking in my mind. I always like to pretend like if I'm on the payroll, maybe I can't come up with the whole story, but Lord help me, give me that finish. Get me to the match. Let me be the guy that takes your story in and let me tweak it. Let me put those final little touches on it. That's who I want to be. That's what I enjoy about wrestling. I love that side of things. I love understanding who these people are as humans. I love seeing these characters with depth, with multiple faces, with unpredictability. That's what I enjoy, and I want to share that with y'all as we go on this journey. But let me know what you think about it. I'm putting this out there before WrestleMania because I want to be on the record. I want to say I had this thought before it happened. I want to be able to compare what I came up with versus what they came up with, and I want to be able to look back and say, man, they did good, or man, we really could have rocked the house with what we had. But let me know in the comments what you think. I'm going to be putting out a couple of more, but I'd love to hear your feedback. Y'all have a good one.